चलिए तो गुड इवनिंग. वी आर डिस्कसिंग अबाउट एरिस्टोटल जो है. व्हाट वाज द लास्ट एस्पेक्ट व्हिच वी डिस्कस्ड एक्चुअली? गोल्डन मीन एक्चुअली. ठीक है, वी आर डिस्कस्ड अबाउट गोल्डन मीन जो है. अनदर एस्पेक्ट इज टेक डाउन. अकॉर्डिंग टू एरिस्टोटल, courage is considered to be one of the most important qualities, because it guarantees all other qualities. Are you getting this point? Of all the qualities, the most important quality has been considered to be courage. And why most important? Because through courage we can guarantee other qualities. Can you cite some example of it? Courage. But remember, if a person has honesty, he must have the courage to speak the truth. Then only the person can be considered to be honest. So honesty becomes a quality only when the person has the courage to speak the truth. Very good. Any other example? Just for example, to be innovative is one of the quality, but person can become innovative only when the person has the courage to take a risk. Plus earlier, we had referred to Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. And plus, if you refer to his perspective, he mentioned about that knowledge has 4 components. And one of the components of the knowledge can be seen in the terms of courage. तो नोट कर लीजिए, just to understand the correlation between Western and Indian thinkers. According to Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, courage is considered to be one of the components of knowledge. Courage is considered to be one of the components of knowledge, which implies number 1, courage to think differently. Number 2, courage to invent. Number 3, courage to travel into what shall be? Into explored path or unexplored path? Unexplored path. Very good. The courage to travel into an unexplored path. Next, courage to discover what? Possible or impossible? To courage to discover the impossible. Next, courage to fight against the problems. And lastly, the courage to succeed. And therefore we can say that courage is one of the components of knowledge, and through knowledge we can develop the courage to invent, the courage to travel into unexplored path, the courage to fight against problems. So these can be considered to be different aspects of the contributions of the knowledge. ठीक है, चलिए. तो under virtue theory we focused upon Socrates, Plato and Aristotle. Now we shall discuss about consequential theory जो है. तो next आइए. तो अंदर discussion shall be with respect to consequential कॉन्सिक्वेंशियल थियरी जो है, चलिए, आकांक्षा मेंशंस अबाउट करेज टू टेक इनिशिएटिव, वेरी मच जस्टिफाइड. एंड ऋतिक, अभिषेक, सोनी, कपिल, एवरीवन, गुड इवनिंग. ठीक है, चलिए. Now, in the case of consequential, remember, any human action is considered to be morally right only if the consequence of that action can be considered to be good. Now, once we say good or bad, so this can be examined in the terms of that consequence can be favorable, the consequence can be unfavorable. Now, any human action becomes morally right only when the favorable consequence is more than unfavorable, because there cannot be any action where consequence can be either totally favorable or totally unfavorable. That कीजिए. According to consequential theory, a human action can be considered to be morally right if the consequences of that action if the consequences of that action are more favorable than unfavorable, Now the question comes, human action is morally right if the consequence is more favorable than unfavorable. But this more favorable than unfavorable with respect to whom? When we say consequence is more favorable than unfavorable, so what shall be the reference point to go for the assessment of the consequences? Human action that is morally right. When it is right, when the consequence is more favorable than unfavorable, that this consequence we shall examine with respect to whom? With respect to? Now that is there. Ethical is morally right. And that is based on the consequences. But once we are supposed to examine the consequence, so this consequence shall be examined with respect to whom? With respect to? Some of you said with respect to society. Some you said with respect to individual. Remember, if the consequence we are examined with respect to oneself, if it is with respect to oneself, that is referred to as ethical egoism. If it is with respect to others, it is referred to as ethical altruism. And if that is with respect to everyone, that is referred to as principle of utilitarian. So on the basis of the consequence, we can examine that three different types of consequential theory है. That कर लीजिए. On the basis of the reference or the context. On the basis of the reference or the context. On the basis of the reference or the context, consequential theories can be broadly classified into three types. Consequential theories can be broadly classified into three types. Number one, ethical egoism. Another is referred to as ethical altruism. And third one is principle of utilitarian. Now here, just a minute. Ananya mentions what pleasure and pain. Remember, pleasure and pain, those are the different parameters for the assessment of the consequences, and pleasure and pain aspect has been more elaborately defined by Jeremy Bentham. Clear now? Bikram mentions about set of standards. Remember, normative theory itself is concerned about set of standards. The set of standards can be virtues. The set of standards can be consequences. The set of standards can be the compliance of the duty. Clear? So normative theory in totality gives importance to the set of the standards. But the set of the standards are different with respect to duty theory, with respect to virtue theory, and with respect to consequential theory. So therefore we cannot say that set of standards only apply in the case of consequential. Plus Tanya mentions about society, Prashant mentions society. If it is for the society, that is referred to as principle of utilitarian. चलिए next note कर लीजिए. Under ethical egoism, an action is morally right if the consequences of that action, if consequences of that action are more favorable than unfavorable only to the agent who is performing the action. Only to the agent who is performing the action. और ईगो का मतलब इस सेल्फ होता है, तो दैट इज कंसर्न अबाउट वन सेल्फ. जो नेक्स्ट आइए. इन द केस ऑफ एथिकल अल्ट्रुइज्म, an action is morally right if the consequences of that action are more favorable than unfavorable to everyone except the agent. To everyone except the agent who is performing the action. And in the case of principle of utilitarian, so in the case of utilitarian, an action is morally right if the consequences of that action are more favorable than unfavorable to everyone. Are more favorable than unfavorable to everyone. Now the point to be understood, in the terms of public services, in the terms of the working of the government, which perspective should get prominence? Ethical egoism, ethical altruism, or principle of utilitarian? Principle of utilitarian. So now we shall further try to elaborate upon the principle of utilitarian. And with respect to this, three perspectives are important. One perspective we can examine in accordance with the perspective of John Rawls. Have you heard the name? Not yet. The second, we can also refer to Jeremy Bentham. Jeremy Bentham. जेरेमी बेंथम जो है, एंड प्लस टू बी ऑन सेफर साइड you also must have some basic understanding about J.S. Mill जो है, ठीक है. But again, thinker is not important, the perspective is more important. The whole principle of utilitarian that is based on the perspective of John Rawls, Jeremy Bentham, J.S. Mill, out of these three, for the sake of exam, John Rawls is more important जो है, ठीक है. चलिए तो नोट कर लीजिए पहले जॉन रॉल्स थियरी ऑफ जस्टिस जो है, John Rawls theory of justice. John Rawls theory of justice. चलिए first take down some basic aspect. It is based upon two fundamental principles. ऐड कर लीजिए. It is based upon two fundamental principles. Number one, every person should have right to liberty in correspondence with the other individuals. What does it mean? The liberty of the individuals must commensurate with respect to one another. And number two, the socio-economic positions. Number two, the socio-economic positions should be for everyone's advantage. Advantage and open to all. Should be to everyone's advantage and open to all. Change the paragraph. These two fundamental principles can guarantee a just and morally acceptable society. So these two principles can guarantee a just and morally acceptable society. Now, if referred to these two fundamental principles, and if ask you, Rawls is concerned about which aspect? Ki all persons in this society, I repeat again, all the persons in this society, they should be on the same floor or they should be subjected to same ceiling. Read the principles and then try to respond. The liberty of every individual must correspond to the liberty of other individuals, and social economic positions should be to the advantage of everyone and should be open to all. So these two fundamental principles, these indicate the importance that all the members of the society, they should be on the same floor, same level, or they should be subjected to same ceiling or height. Chali, I just changed the format of the question for better understanding. You must have heard that government goes for various affirmative action. Just for example, take the policy of reservation adopted by the government. What is basic objective of the affirmative action adopted by the government? That all the members of the society, they should be at the same floor or subject to the same ceiling. Same floor. Everyone should be provided with equal opportunities. And ultimately, the success, performance, that will depend upon the talent and the contributions made by the different members of the society. Now think of this situation. If all persons in the society, they are subject to the same ceiling, then no person will try to contribute more than the average. There is no incentive, because ultimately everyone has to achieve the same height. And therefore, Rawls' theory of justice gives importance to that all the members of the society, they must be on the same floor, they must be on the same level. Ultimately, that depends upon the talent and the contributions of the members of the society as to what extent they can achieve their excellency, success or performance. Point is clear? Another important aspect is, in the case of Rawls' theory of justice, he gives importance to equal treatment to all. Liberty of one must correspond with the liberty of another. And plus, all persons have equal position with respect to social advantages, economic advantages. Now if I ask you, Rawls gives importance to equal treatment to all. This equal treatment to all applies with respect to all circumstances, or it only applies to equal circumstances? In the case of all, we are taking both equal as well as unequal. तो बताइए, when Rawls gives importance to equal treatment for the all, so does this apply with respect to all situations, or this applies only with respect to equal situations? Equal situation. And think of the situation, if situations are unequal and treatment is equal, so is it equal treatment for all? No. And therefore, to achieve the objective of equal treatment for the all, it is important when circumstances are unequal, the treatment also must be unequal. Under the unequal circumstances, if we are going for equal treatment, so that treatment ultimately is not equal, that treatment becomes unequal. Just say for example, let us suppose we have two persons X and Y. Both commit the same crime, but one person is rich, another person is poor. Circumstances are unequal. In that case, for the same crime, the punishment imposed on both the persons should be same or should be different. सेम तो पहले से पता था, थिंकर पढ़ने की जरूरत क्या थी फिर? Think of the situation. If same punishment, or let us suppose same fine is imposed on both the persons, so that punishment will have same consequences on both the persons or different consequences? Different consequences. Remember, under ethics, we are not only concerned with justice. Justice क्या कहता है? Crime is same. Under principle of rule of law, the punishment should also be same. But justice must be justiciable. And once we say justice must be justiciable, so we are supposed to take into consideration the difference in the terms of circumstances. Refer to any law, whatever you can recall and visualize. Refer to any law. Every law contains a provision that in case of violation of the law, it mentions about some kind of punishment, which can be either fine or imprisonment, or it can be both fine as well as imprisonment. Recall any law. Does the act or the law mentions about the fixed quantum of the punishment, or it mentions about a range? Fine up to rupees 50,000, imprisonment up to 7 years. Why there is no fixation of the quantum of the punishment if we say in case of same crime, the punishment should be same? If punishment could have been same, so nature of the punishment could also have been fixed. Why range? Because ultimately circumstances also must be taken into consideration. And let me tell you that once we refer to the justice. And with respect to justice, we do have the importance of the court of law. But remember, the persons who preside in the court of law, judges, they take oath in the name of God. The person who comes into the witness box, he takes oath before Gita. Plus, take the case of any law. Every law has two dimensions. One dimension is law should be valid, and another is law should have a value. जब कहते हैं law should be valid, तो are we concerned about legality or morality? And law should have a value, morality. Every law comprises of principle and policy. That principal aspect of the law indicates the importance of legality or morality. Principle. Only two options are there. Let's come to a consensus actually. Legality or morality. Principle are tools and techniques. Tools and techniques are concerned about legality. And what is policy? Policy refers to the preference. Policy refers to the achievement of some desired state of affairs. And therefore, policy part is concerned about morality. So remember that even when we refer to the interpretation of the law, law speaks about equality. Equality is one of the basic foundation of the principle of rule of law, but it does contain the importance of morality also. And I'll suggest you, for the sake of current perspective, you go through various judgment of court. Try to have more minute observation of the judgment of the court. When judiciary says the provision of this law is not unconstitutional, the provision of this law is not unconstitutional, the judiciary is concerned about law is valid or law as a value. Okay, this provision is not unconstitutional. So here, judicial interpretation we can examine in the terms of the law to become valid or law to have a value. Law is valid. Then judiciary further adds, whether this provision should be there or not, I leave upon the parliament to decide whether this provision should be there or not, whether this provision is desirable or not. That judiciary lives upon the wisdom of parliament, because that is concerned about which aspect of the law, that is concerned about the policy aspect of the law. And who is supposed to decide policy? It is the parliament. Points are clear? And therefore, if we refer to Rawls' theory of justice, so remember, he talks about justice, but not in the terms of legal interpretation. Justice in the terms of morally acceptable society. And justice in the terms of morally acceptable implies that justice must be justiciable. And therefore, if we refer to the perspective of John Rawls, he gives importance to equal distribution of the resources among the members of society, or equitable distribution of the resources among the members of the society. Equal or equitable? Equitable. Note कर लीजिए. Rawls gives importance to equitable distribution of the public resources. Theory of justice propounded by theory of justice propounded by John Rawls gives importance to equal treatment to all, equal treatment to all in equal circumstances. In equal circumstances. And therefore, under unequal circumstances, the treatment should be unequal. So that justice can be made to become what? More justiciable. More justiciable. Points are clear? Another aspect is Rawls gives importance to wheel of ignorance. नोट कर लीजिए, wheel of ignorance. बता सकते हो what is the meaning of wheel? Wheel of ignorance. Yes, please. Mask, or you can say it is basically curtain, some kind of. Clear? Now try to understand how Rawls is concerned about the wheel of ignorance to establish a morally just society. Just for example, let us suppose one has to decide about the rule of a game. Okay, what's the rules and regulation of a game? It is decided by the players, and players are aware about their positions to play a game. So in that case, rules and regulations shall tend to become more partial or impartial. The persons who are deciding the rules of the game, they are the players themselves, and they know from which position they are supposed to play. If they decide the rule, so such rules shall be considered to be partial or impartial. Partial. Because they will formulate rules as per their own interest. Because they are aware from which position they are supposed to play. Now similarly, let us suppose government has to decide policies, and policies should be for the larger interest of the society. A policy maker, they are aware about their socio-economic positions. So but natural, they shall tend to formulate policy in accordance with their own interest or as per the interest of the masses. They are aware about their positions. It means to what extent that policy is going to benefit them. It means they shall formulate policies to suit their own interest. But if policy makers are ignorant about their socio-economic positions, and then if they formulate the policy, so such policies can be considered to be in the larger interest of the society. You must have heard such kind of allegations that policies of the government are more elitist. Policies of the government, they are meant to suit the specific interest of some of the select segments of society. Why such allegations? Because policy maker, if they formulate the policy, they must be ignorant about their positions in the society, and then if they formulate the policy, such policies will tend to become more impartial, and such policies can be considered to be in the larger interest of the society. So that is basically wheel of ignorance. That kar lijiye. According to John Rawls, the policy makers should be ignorant about their socio-economic positions, so that the policies are decided in accordance with the larger interest of the society, rather than the specific interest of the select groups in the society. That will make the policies to become more impartial and achieve the objective of the larger public interest. You're getting the points? Okay. Yes, please. You are very much right. Thinkers are concerned about what should be, what it is, what should be. Whole ethics is concerned about what should be. And plus, if we cannot achieve something, does it mean it cannot be considered to be desirable? We cannot make the society to become 100% corruption free. So should corruption become the value system of the society? The answer is no. We are striving. One should strive. Just say, for example, we talk about good governance, ethical governance. Is it possible for any government anywhere in the world which can claim to have achieved the objectives of good governance? Next to impossible. But at least we can strive. We can make efforts to achieve that state of affairs. इसलिए जितने भी thinkers का perspective, these are concerned about what we should aspire to achieve. In practice, it is not possible. This point clear? But remember, here also, the degree of the application of the perspective differs from thought to thought. जैसे we discussed about Kautilya. Kautilya perspective is more pragmatic and practical. But if you compare the perspective of Kautilya with respect to Western thinker like Max Weber, thoughts are similar, but Weber's approach is more theoretical. Kautilya approach is more practical. But no approach of thinker can be 100% practical because it is more based on the perception. इसलिए कहते हैं perspective है, perception जो है. And remember, it is not possible that every perception can be justified on the basis of empirical evidences, especially in the case of theories which we deal in the case of social science. अगर physical science होता तो which could be tested in laboratory. And what is ethics? It is a normative science. जब कहते हैं normative, it is concerned about evaluation. What is right wrong? It's a kind of evaluation. And evaluation can never be totally substantiated on the basis of empirical evidences. But it does not mean that thoughts are not required. और thoughts पढ़ के फायदा क्या होता है? We ourselves build up our thought actually. That is the basic objective of going through thought and thinkers. There is one query from Akshay. Sir, please give some tips. I don't have any tips. Akshay, UPSC is not based on tips and clues जो है, ठीक है. Anyway, how to deal such questions in which a statement is given of any moral thinker and asked, what do you understand by this statement? And this is what we are trying to understand actually. Akshay, let me tell you, I said initially, thinker topic is not an independent topic, and for that matter, whole UPSC is not independent. Okay. अब जैसे for example, paper 4 mentions about right to information, okay. But paper 2 mentions about transparency and accountability, and right to information is a means to achieve transparency and accountability. So where to place right to information? Right to information has both legality as well as morality, and this applies to any law enacted by Parliament. And therefore, the best is to deal with the thinker is go through the statement, try to understand the essence of the statement. The essence of the statement should be correlated with some topic and subtopic of the syllabus. On the basis of the understanding of the topic and the subtopic, you can write what this statement means to you. Deliberately in the class, I mentioned about Mahatma Gandhi deadly sins. I did not focus so much on Mahatma Gandhi. I focused more upon that business without morality corresponds to corporate governance. Understand? When I said wealth without work, I focused on which aspect? Corruption. Because even if you go through the thinker, it is not going to serve any meaningful purpose in the examination, because going with the format of the question says, what does it mean to you? And our meaning must be contemporary in accordance with the prevailing socio-economic political conditions. Just Mahatma Gandhi, there is no court of law which can be higher than the court of conscience. What does it mean to you? Just think for a while. Conscience. It's one of the source of ethical guidance. But source of ethical guidance is also law. So what Mahatma Gandhi says? Court of law, law. Court of conscience, that is concerned about internal source of ethical guidance. And therefore, you can do justice with any topic only when you have completely understood the whole subject matter. Because two topics and subtopics cannot be clearly demarcated. So whatever you may say, it is a tip or a clue, but it is not a tip, it is the way to approach the subject matter. Clear Akshay? Okay. And therefore, always look for thinker with respect to other topics and subtopics. And this is what I'm trying to do in the class, which may be difficult also for someone. But after discussing thinkers in the class, once you refer to other topics, so automatically you will get deeper insight to understand the thinkers. This point clear? Clear, Akshay? So this is about will of ignorance. Next, I change the paragraph. According to Jeremy Bentham, the morality of the human action can be examined on the basis of the calculation of the consequences of each action on case-to-case basis. Each action on case-to-case basis. To examine whether that action is morally right or wrong. right or wrong. This aspect is referred to as what will you say? Okay, this aspect is referred to as act utilitarian, or it can be considered to be rule utilitarian. Act, very good. This can be referred to as act utilitarian. चलिए, I proceed to understanding. Bentham also proposed, इसे मैं ऐड कर लीजिए. Bentham also proposed that we calculate. चलिए, very good आकांक्षा. It is act. Bentham also proposed that we calculate the pleasure and pain. We calculate the pleasure and pain as the only consequences. Pleasure and pain as the only consequences to decide whether the conduct or action is moral. Just to simplify, what gives pleasure to everyone, that is ethical, and what gives pain to everyone, that is unethical. Clear? And plus, there cannot be any kind of generalizations about which action can be considered to be moral or immoral. That depends upon case to case basis. And case to case basis implies that depends upon the assessment of the specific action undertaken by the individual. Next आइए. According to, change the paragraph, according to J.S. Mill, the consequences of the human action are examined in accordance with the moral rules which are adopted on the basis of being more favorable than unfavorable for everyone. Now the point to be understood. In the case of action is examined on the basis of pleasure and the pain, and that decides whether action can be morally right or wrong. But in the case of J.S. Mill, the morality of the action depends whether it is in accordance with the moral rule or not. And moral rules are decided not on the basis of the consequences with respect to individual, with respect to the consequences for everyone. Just for example, society has decided that everyone should speak truth. It's a moral rule. Anyone who does not speak truth is considered to be morally wrong. Now, one should speak the truth. Why this moral rule? This is not favorable for anyone. This is favorable for everyone. Moral rule कहता है, do not steal. Is it advantageous for someone or for everyone? For everyone. Now think of this situation. if all members of society they speak a lie, is it morally favorable to the society? So what is the moral rule? One should not speak a lie. And that rule will decide the assessment of the morality of the human action or the human conduct. And remember, such rules are based on morality. And remember, can there be any society which can say that dishonesty should become the moral rule? Can any society say that speaking a lie should become the moral rule? The answer is no. And plus, moral rules are established in accordance with the consequences that it is favorable to everyone who are the members of the society. Clear? Bikram, you asking act and rule feature again. Not getting the point actually. So Jeremy Bentham is concerned about act, action will decide, and J.S. Mill is concerned about compliance with the moral rule that will decide about the morality of the human action to become right or wrong. And remember कि every society formulates such kind of moral rules आपका जो या रिकॉल कीजिए आप लोग पढ़े होंगे पहले सोशल टैबूज होते थे. What are social taboos? Those were the moral rules, and those social taboos ultimately got developed into ethical principles. And social taboos are the feature of every society at every point of development of the civilization. Points are clear? So these three perspectives combined together explains the importance of consequential theory. Shall I go through all the points of the consequential? If any problem, to let me know. And after this, now we come to duty theory. तो नेक्स्ट आइए ड्यूटी थियरी जो है. And with respect to duty theory, we have got different perspectives जो है. तो इसमें आप चाहें तो I'll mention about human being, Kant, और एक कर देते हैं rights correlated with duty जो है. ठीक है, तो we shall discuss about three perspectives in the case of duty theory जो है. तो नोट कीजिए पर्सपेक्टिव नंबर 1 जो है. Now if I say you, as a human being, we always carry some obligations, right or wrong. And what are our obligations as a human being? And duties are basically obligations. Can you mention some of the obligations as a human being? There are so many obligations are there. To cause no harm to others. Very good. Yes, please. Respecting elders. You are respecting everyone in this society. Why elders only? Chali. Respecting everyone in this society. Parents, they have to take care of their children. Clear? So remember, as a human being, some obligations are already inherent implied, and such obligations are not invented, such obligations are not discovered. These are the obligations because we are human beings. Clear? So that is one perspective. And plus, if you refer to various obligations, so all such obligations can be broadly classified into three types. One is, as a human being, we have some obligations to oneself. We have some obligations to others, and plus, perspective says we have also some obligations to God. So note कर लीजिए. As a human being, चलिए, आकांक्षा says to obey parents, respect for teachers and parents, Parnika, very much right. Nabi, respect for humans. And Mukund says to follow society law, very much right. Janal says don't destroy plants and warm environment, chaliye, expected. Differentiate between right and wrong. Remember, Akanksha differentiate between right and wrong. It cannot be the obligation because ultimately that is the whole subject matter of ethical principles आपका. How to decide what is right and wrong जो है. Sir, then it is correct to say that we always focus on what should be rather than what ought to be. Remember, what should be and what ought to be. What is basic difference in both the aspects? Because one of the student, Suvansi is saying, what should be rather than what ought to be. As far as my understanding goes, what should be, what ought to be, both are similar, but under what ought to be, should be becomes more assertive. This point clear? So what should be, what ought to be, you can use interchangeably. Our concern is to what should be and what it is. But once you say what should be and what ought to be, the under ought to be, should be becomes more assertive. And therefore what ought to be, what should be, both are concerned about mandatory. But what ought to mandatory becomes more essential or more assertive or more authoritative, you can say. Okay. Chaliye. Someone responded also both are same. I will not say both are same, both are similar actually. Because what ought to be makes what should be to become more compliance or more mandatory. ठीक है सुभाष से चलिए क्या तकलीफ है अजय that's all. As a human being we have certain obligations. As a human being we have certain obligations to oneself, to others, and to God. Oneself, others, and to God. Plus it is said that such obligations are considered to be binding, that even if it does not have the desired result, then also we are supposed to follow obligations as human beings. Just say for example, let us suppose a parent does not give importance to the education of the children on the ground that it may give rise to some financial savings. As per obligation of the human beings, this can be considered to be right or wrong. If a parent does not spend on the education of the children on the ground that it will give rise to some kind of financial savings, can this be considered to be right or wrong? Wrong, because it is our obligation as a parent to provide education to children, even if the consequence is more favorable. And what is favorable consequence? That it is going to give rise to financial savings. But as a duty, as an obligation, we are supposed to give importance to the education of children. Clear? Number 2, second perspective is provided by Kant. और इसमें ऐड कीजिए, according to Kant, duty, according to Kant, duty should be performed. Duty should be performed for the sake of duty. For the sake of duty. Irrespective of its consequences. Irrespective of its consequences. The point to be understood. One is, duty for the sake of getting something. Another is performance of duty for the sake of duty. जो है. Kant says one should follow duty not to get some outcome, but the compliance of duty should be just for due regard to duty. जो है. Change the paragraph. Kant gives importance to categorical imperative. Categorical imperative. And that is the most fundamental aspect to understand the perspective of Kant. Categorical imperative. इसी को ब्रैकेट कर लीजिए फॉर द सेक ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग. इट इज रेफर्ड टू एज अनकंडीशनल कमांड. Imperative refers to command, category refers to unconditional. It is unconditional command. Now we are supposed to understand what is unconditional command and how this provides the basis for the understanding of Kant. Note कर लीजिए. Categorical imperative is considered to be universal. It's considered to be universal moral law which applies to all persons, and all mankind. It has no reference to, इसे मैट कीजिए, it has no reference to any external end. Rather, it is the right direction. It is the right direction of the will itself. Right direction of the will itself. According to Kant, a right action, right means moral, a right action should satisfy two conditions. Number one, the two conditions are, number one, the action must be in accordance with the moral law which has been derived or revealed on the basis of what Western thinkers हैं, moral law है, that is revealed on the basis of what? Wisdom or intellect. नोट कर लीजिए, on the basis of wisdom, intellect or reason. Wisdom, you can write wisdom or intellect or reason. And number two, the agent. Agent is the doer. The agent should perform with respect to, the agent should perform with respect to pure regard, with respect to the pure regard to the moral law. Regard to the moral law. Regard to the moral law. Now some basic aspect to be understood. The first aspect is categorical imperative. Imperative refers to command. categorical is unconditional. When something is unconditional, so but natural, its compliance becomes mandatory. I repeat again. If something is unconditional, so but natural, its compliance becomes mandatory, obligatory. Why it is mandatory? Because it is considered to be moral law. And why moral law? Because it is based on wisdom, intellect or rationality of the individual or rationality of the human beings. Human beings. And all human beings are rational. Therefore, every human being must go for the compliance of the moral law. Getting the points? Another aspect is, it is unconditional. It itself implies that compliance of law or a duty can be considered to be a means or it is an end in itself. अगर मीन्स होगा तो एंड कुछ और होगा, तो अगर कुछ एंड कुछ और होगा तो वी आर गिविंग इंपॉर्टेंस टू कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस. You are doing something as a means, it means you are doing something as a means to attain something. And if you are doing something as a means to attain something, so that becomes conditional or unconditional. You are going to the college in order to get a job. It is conditional or unconditional? Conditional. So here going to the college is an end or a means. It is a means to get the job. But in the case of Kant, why should we go for the acceptance of the moral law? Not because it is a means to attain something. Because this compliance of the moral law itself is our end. And why end? Not to gain something. Because it is a moral law revealed on the basis of the wisdom or the intellect or the rationality. And since all human beings are rational, it is based on rationality, so it is our duty to perform duty for the sake of duty, not for getting something out of the performance of the duty. Getting the points? Thinker है तो थोड़ा अधिक हम लोग को भी सोचना पड़ेगा to understand actually जो है. I remember when you understand any thinker, कहा जाता है to understand thinker, you are not supposed to get something outside the mind of the thinker. We must get inside the mind of the thinker. And to get inside the mind of the thinker, for time we just forget what we perceive, what we think. Let your thought process be completely merged into the perspective of the thinker. Points are clear? And plus, if you have any doubt to understand duty theory, always relate with consequences. Consequences में क्या है? We do something not for the sake of something, we do something to get something out of it. But in the case of duty, the performance of duty is not for the sake of getting something out of the performance of duty, it is just for the sake of the compliance with the duty. And why it is important? Because it is in accordance with the universal moral law. And universal moral law has not been decided by me and you, decided by the human beings. Based on the rationality. And since it is based on rationality, so but natural, we are rational, we must follow the law which have been designed on the basis of the rationality of the human beings. Points are clear? And plus, if you refer to the perspective of the Kant, so this perspective of the Kant even goes beyond Bhagavad Gita. अक्सर आप सुनते होंगे कर्म किए जा, फल की चिंता मत करिए इंसान. तो कहीं ना कहीं तो फल की चिंता है. नहीं, कर्म किए जा, फल की चिंता मत करिए इंसान. तो जैसे आपसे कोई कहे कि फल की चिंता मत, किसका मतलब है कि फल की चिंता तो है, लेकिन फोकस किस पे करना? ड्यूटी पे. कांट कहता है जस्ट फॉरगेट अबाउट द आउटकम ऑफ द परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ अ ड्यूटी, जस्ट फोकस ऑन योर ड्यूटी. जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आई हैव टू स्पीक द ट्रूथ. I will not be concerned about consequences of my speaking the truth, even if a person is defamed. Because my duty is to speak the truth irrespective of its consequences. Consequential theory क्या कहेगा? If you speak the truth and it is going to defame someone, the speaking the truth becomes morally wrong. But in the case of duty, not speaking truth becomes wrong irrespective of the fact that it is going to have negative or adverse consequences. Am I able to make you bit clear? पूरा क्लैरिटी तो मुझे भी नहीं होगा, ठीक है? Able to understand? ठीक है, चलिए. Plus, I do one thing. One is hypothetical imperative. So this is what has been supported by Kant. I will also prefer to discuss what has been opposed by Kant to understand what is categorical imperative. Note कर लीजिए. Kant is not supportive of. Kant is not supportive of hypothetical imperatives. Hypothetical imperatives, which refers to conditional command. Which refers to conditional command. That is to say, command, that is to say, to realize an end, achieve, to realize an end, comma, one must act in a particular manner. One must act in a particular manner. The laws which are considered to be the means. The laws which are considered to be the means to other ends. Are in the nature of hypothetical imperatives. The laws which are considered to be means to other ends are in the nature of hypothetical imperatives. अब क्लियर पा रहा है? इसलिए compliance of duty is not a means, it is an end in itself. If it is a means to achieve some end, so that becomes hypothetical imperative. Kant gives importance to categorical imperative. Plus, Mansi, you are saying that process is more important than result with respect to what? Please make it clear. Huh? Another aspect is, whatever discussion we have done about Kant, take the case of human beings. What could have been the perspective of Kant? Human beings should be considered to be a means, or human beings are end in themselves. Are end in themselves. Why they are end in themselves? Because every human being is rational. Every human being has its own value. Every human being has its own dignity. I remember, once we respect the value, dignity of every human being, to but natural, human beings should not be considered to be a means to serve the interest of others, because every human being is equally important by himself or herself. तो नोट कर लीजिए, according to Kant, human beings are ends in themselves. Human beings are ends in themselves. And therefore, they should never be treated and therefore they should never be treated as means to serve the interest of others, to serve the interest of others. Every human being is rational with his own value and dignity. And therefore, every human being should be respected. Because of his own values. Because of his own values. This point clear? Plus, let's say for example, under the perspective of Kant, can suicide be considered to be a moral act? Why no? Not otherwise, as per the perspective of Kant, I am saying. You are totally right. But how we can say that as per the perspective of Kant, suicide is a immoral action. Under, yes please. I did not say as per your perspective, as per the perspective of Kant, उससे relate कीजिए. And why it is not moral? That's my question actually. Forget about your perspective. You all know society is immoral, but how can we equate this with respect to the understanding of Kant? That is my concern actually. Intellectuals also commit suicide, na? What does it mean? If a person commits suicide, it means he's taking his life so that the miseries of life can be eliminated. So life is considered to be a means to eliminate one's miseries. जबकि life क्या है? It is an end, it is not a means. Clear? Similarly, Kant says, if you steal someone's property, तो आपने जो स्टील किया उसमें आपने क्या माना? That individual is a means to fulfill your own interest. So such actions cannot be morally permitted. This point clear? So under suicide, life is a means to eliminate the miseries. So life becomes a means, it is not an end, therefore it is not permitted as per the perspective of Kant. लेकिन जरा consequential की बात कीजिए. If one takes a life to eliminate his miseries, that action is moral or immoral? Consequential theory. I am taking my life to eliminate my miseries. That becomes moral. Yes, remember, what is moral, what is immoral? That itself depends upon different perspectives. Clear? And the very important aspect is that once we say what is moral, immoral, ethics even goes beyond this. I think earlier we had discussed about ethical perspective can be broadly classified into meta-ethics, normative ethics and applied. For the sake of GS, we are giving importance to normative, but if you refer to meta-ethics is also concerned about the assessment of the set of standards to examine the morality of the human action. Just for example, speaking truth is considered to be moral. Why speaking truth is moral? Why not speaking a lie is moral? So even set of standards can be subject to examination on the basis of its morality, and that is the subject matter of meta ethics. Just for example, for civil servant, we do have the code of conduct, and the compliance of the code of conduct is considered to be moral action for the civil servant. One can ask, why this compliance of code of conduct is moral? There must be some ground for it. So those grounds are further examined by meta ethics. और एथिक्स का एक नेचर आपको बता दें, जितना अंडरस्टैंड कीजिएगा उतना प्रॉब्लम कम होगा, बढ़ेगा बढ़ेगा जो है, इसलिए उतना ही प्रॉब्लम आपको दे रहा है जितना में एग्जाम में काम चल जाए। जो एथिक्स का नेचर है, मोर यू गो इन डेप्थ मोर यू फील यू डू नॉट हैव द प्रॉपर अंडरस्टैंडिंग जो है, ठीक है। बट देयर इज टाइम लिमिट ऑफ 3 hours, 150 words and 250 words. तो दैट इज द होल अंडरस्टैंडिंग जो है, तो आई एम टेकिंग दैट फैक्टर इनटू कंसिडरेशन जो है, ठीक है। तो दीज आर सम ऑफ द इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ कांट आपका। द थर्ड एस्पेक्ट नोट कर लीजिए, तो वन इज ह्यूमन ऑब्लिगेशन, अनदर इज कांट। द थर्ड एस्पेक्ट ऑफ ड्यूटी थ्योरी, और इसमें ऐड कीजिए, ड्यूटीज आर कंसिडर्ड टू बी कोरिलेटिव। ड्यूटीज आर कंसिडर्ड टू बी कोरिलेटिव with the rights. Rights are considered to be justified. Rights are considered to be justified claim, justified claim against another person's behavior. Justified claim against another person's behavior. Rights and duties can be considered to be the two sides of the same coin. And therefore rights and duties are interrelated or interdependent. Interrelated or interdependent. Now this perspective says, what is duty? Duty cannot be examined in isolation to the rights, because duties and rights both are ultimately correlated, and duty theory cannot become comprehensive without supplementing with rights theory. Plus, if I say you कि rights and duties are the two sides of the same coin, it means कि for the performance of duty it must be supplemented with rights, because rights and duties, they always go together. And to understand this mutual interdependency between rights and duties, let us suppose I take the case of two persons, X and Y, and try to understand the correlation part, because here duty theory has been correlated with the rights theory. If I say you, right of X becomes the duty for the X, right or wrong? Till such time, the right of X is considered to be the duty for the X, the right of X cannot be safeguarded. If I say you, right of X can be considered to be the duty for Y, then only the right of X can be protected and safeguarded. Plus, if I say you, right of X is always correlative with a set of duties and responsibilities to be performed by x and plus, let us suppose x does not respect the right of y. Does it mean that y becomes free of his duty towards x? Yes. I repeat again. If x does not respect the right of y, does it mean that y becomes free of his duty towards x? Can we permit eye for eye? What does it mean? If x does not respect the right of y, even then it is the duty of the y to respect the right of x. This point clear? So these are different aspects to understand mutual interdependency between rights and duty theory gives importance to rights theory because both are correlated. चाहे तो ऐड कर लीजिए. The mutual interdependency between the rights and duties. The mutual interdependency between the rights and duties can be examined on the basis of number one, right of x becomes the duty. Right of x becomes the duty of x. Can you cite some example of it? The right of an individual is considered to be the duty for that individual. That is x actually. Then only the right of x can be safeguarded. Refer to any right. अपनी तरफ से बताइए जो भी राइट आप सोच पा रहे हैं. Right to speak. So many examples are there. ठीक है. We have right to vote. It is our duty to go to the polling booth to exercise our right to vote. We have right to life. It is our duty not to harm our own life. We have right to speech. It is our duty not to give hate speech. This point clear? The right of an individual can be safeguarded only when it is supplemented with the duty of X. Number 2 add कीजिए. Right of X becomes a duty for Y. An example to substantiate. Right of X becomes the duty for Y. जो है. Right to life. Right to life of X can be safeguarded only when it is the duty of Y not to harm the life of X. X has the right to speech. It is the duty of the Y that X must be provided with adequate opportunities to speak. Points are clear? The third aspect, the right of X is correlative with a set of duties and responsibilities. Right of X is correlative with a set of duties and responsibilities. So for example, let us suppose if we have right to education, so it is our duty, education must be spread in the larger interest of society. If we have right to wealth, it is our duty, importance must be given to hygiene and sanitation. एंड द फोर्थ नोट कीजिए, if x does not respect the right of y, it does not imply that y becomes free of his duty towards x. An example of it. गांधी जी तो कुछ और कहते हैं क्या? क्या देखिए, जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल, लेट अस सपोज x murders some relative of y. It means x has not given regard to respect for right to life. It does not mean कि y will also murder some relative of x, because ultimately y should be concerned about the respect for the life for x. Similarly, if x does not permit y to speak, it does not mean कि y should not permit x to speak. इसी कथन eye for an eye, this principle does not apply in the case of moral rights. Change the paragraph. There are three foundational values. There are three foundational values for the moral rights. There are three foundational values for the moral rights. Number one, right to life. Number one, right to life. Number two, right to liberty. Right to liberty. And number three, to look for happiness. To look for happiness. Remember, if you refer to USA Declaration of Independence, that itself gives importance to these three aspects. Change the paragraph. Moral rights. Moral rights. Moral rights have four important features. Moral rights have four important features. Number one, such rights are, क्या कहिएगा, natural or artificial? Such rights are natural. Very good. Number two, such rights are, what will you say, universal or specific? Universal. Very good. Such rights are universal, which applies to each and every person. So such rights are universal. Plus, such rights are equal or unequal with respect to different individuals. Such rights are equal. तो note कीजिए, such rights are equal. तो such rights apply to all the persons equally. And plus, can such rights be transferred or surrendered to someone? सोच के बताइए. लाइफ है, लिबर्टी है, और परसूट ऑफ हैप्पीनेस, लुकिंग फॉर हैप्पीनेस. कैन सच राइट्स बी ट्रांसफर्ड और सरेंडर्ड टू समवन? नो. These rights are inalienable. Therefore, these rights cannot be transferred. These rights cannot be surrendered to anyone. What is slavery? What is bonded labor? Surrendering of one's right, and that is not the feature of the moral rights. Note कीजिए, such rights are considered to be inalienable, or which cannot be surrendered, which cannot be transferred. It means such rights cannot be handed over to some another person because it is one's own moral rights. इसलिए जो स्लेवरी होता है, बॉन्डेड लेबर होता है, why these are not justified? Because these are totally against the principle of the moral rights, because moral rights can neither be surrendered nor this can be transferred. ठीक है, तो these are perspective with respect to duty theory. जो I am getting some queries, जरा सा देख लें एक बार. Sir, how taboos are moral rules? Remember, when we say taboos, so taboos are some kind of restrictions. Those restrictions are prohibitive in nature. Remember, the moral rules are also prohibitive in nature and preventive as well. Just for example, what is code of conduct? Code of conduct mentions about what a civil servant is not supposed to do and what a civil servant is supposed to do. So social taboos were basically what? It were prohibitive in nature. So social taboos can be considered moral rules, because moral does not mean that these rules are permitted under morality. What is more important? These are moral rules which are to be followed by each and every member of society. In that sense, such rules are considered to be moral. Clear, Nabi? And plus, चलिए, there is no other queries. चलिए थोड़ा ब्रेक करते हैं, तो आफ्टर ब्रेक लास्टली वी शैल कंप्लीट बाय डिस्कसिंग मैक्स वेबर. जो है ठीक है, चलिए तो ब्रेक के बाद वी शैल डिस्कस अबाउट मैक्स वेबर. जो चलिए तो कमिंग बैक, तो लास्टली वी शैल ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड मैक्स वेबर. जो है तो नेक्स्ट आइए मैक्स वेबर. And Max Weber is highly acknowledged for his contribution with respect to bureaucracy. जो है ठीक है. Now, in the case of Max Weber, the first aspect is कि Weber says that power, once it becomes legitimate, then this legitimate power is considered to be authority. जो है. And plus, remember, Weber's model looks to be legal, but within legality, we can do find the importance of ethical imperatives or ethical values. जो है. Now first take down कि what is the meaning of the word power. Power refers to, that कर लीजिए, power refers to the process of, power refers to the process of the exercise, the process of the exercise of the influence. So power refers to the process of the exercise of the influence. And when this power becomes legitimate, and when this power becomes legitimate, it is referred to as authority. It is referred to as authority. Now the point to be understood. Legitimate power is authority. So what can be the grounds or the basis of legitimacy? Weber said, if legitimacy to the power is on the basis of social customs, social norms, social convention, such authority is referred to as traditional. If legitimacy to the power is because of the extraordinary or the special qualities of a leader, that authority is referred to as charismatic. And if the legitimacy to the power is based on rules and regulations, laws, that authority is referred to as legal. And plus, according to Max Weber, this legal authority is considered to be rational. And therefore, Weber gives preference to legal authority in the terms of rationality. Now the point to be understood. Weber says legal authority becomes rational and whole ethics is based on the notion of rationality. The essence of Weber's bureaucratic model and the basic foundation of ethics that has got close resemblance. Another important aspect is which authority can be considered to be objective in nature, traditional, charismatic or legal. And why legal is objective? Why not charismatic? Why not traditional? Why it is legal authority which can be considered to be objective? Take the case of charismatic. It is said that charisma lies in the eyes of beholders. So can charismatic authority be ever considered to be universal? No. Traditional social customs, social norms, these totally depend with respect to one particular social context. But once we say laws, rules and regulations, these are more universally applicable with respect to any social context. Plus, laws, rules and regulations can be codified. And for the sake of the objectivity, there must be codification. But social customs, social norms, charisma, extraordinary qualities, these cannot be subject to any proper codification or quantification. And therefore, Weber's perception of legal authority itself gives importance to objectivity. तो ऐड कर लीजिए, legal authority is based on rules and regulations. Legal authority is based on rules and regulations, and therefore it permits objectivity. It permits objectivity as compared with charismatic and traditional. As compared with charismatic and traditional. Legal authority has been considered to be rational. Legal authority has been considered to be rational, and ethics is based on the premise of rationality. Based on the premise of rationality. Remember, who are the officials? Who are the parts of the bureaucracy under charismatic authority? They are the disciples or the followers of the leader. And plus, once charisma is gone, the charismatic authority gets disintegrated. But in the case of legal, it can give rise to the permanent structure in the working of bureaucracy. And that structure is more consistent, more uniform, more enduring, and these are considered to be the different dimensions of objectivity. The ethics gives importance to objectivity. Weber perception is also based on objectivity. Therefore, legal authority was considered to be rational. Points are clear? Now, on the basis of this legal authority, Weber mentions about some of the features of bureaucracy. And if you refer to the features of the bureaucracy, all the features have the implied notion of morality. तो नोट कर लीजिए, Weber mentions about various features of bureaucracy on the basis of legal rational authority. legal, rational authority. And the features are, so first let's mention the listing of the feature, then we shall try to interpret morality. The features are: number one, rules and regulations. That is most important also. Legal authority. So one of the features pertain to rules and regulations. Number two, merit system of recruitment. Merit system of recruitment. Third feature you can take down: money salary. Money salary. Because payment can be done in the terms of cash or kind. Weber gives importance to cash, money salary. Number fourth, sphere of competence. The fourth feature pertains to sphere of competence. Sphere of competence. Next is impersonality. Another feature, impersonality. Impersonality. Then you can mention about neutrality. Neutrality. Money salary हो गया. Can you repeat the features which I mentioned right now? One is, ठीक है. Okay. Next you can add written documents. Written documents. Because communication can be either written, or it can be verbal, or it can be non-verbal. In which case it is more easy to go for the fixation of responsibilities. Written communication. Therefore, Weber gives importance to written communication in the working of bureaucracy. Now we shall refer to each and every feature to understand how ethical imperatives are more important in the case of the perception of Max Weber. Now, first feature we have mentioned about rules and regulation. Just now we have seen every law, rules and regulation, they are considered to be the codification of the moral values. And therefore, if a public official or civil servant or bureaucrat, they go for the compliance of the laws, they are going for the compliance of the rules and regulation, it means they are also going for the compliance of the moral values. Because every law is the codification of the moral values. And think of this situation: if any law is not in accordance with moral values, such laws will get the support of the society, or such laws will have to face social resistance. Social resistance. Clear? तो चाहे तो ऐड कर लीजिए. Every law is considered to be the codification of the moral values. Codification of the moral values. And therefore, the compliance of the laws also indicate the adherence, also indicates the adherence to the moral values. Adherence to the moral values. So once Weber gives importance to the rules and regulation, it means it also gives importance to the compliance of moral obligations. Another aspect is, just now we said, objectivity, impartiality, non-partisan, we cannot achieve without rules and regulations, right or wrong. So note कीजिए, rules and regulations Rules and regulations provide the basis for. Rules and regulations provide the basis for objectivity, impartiality, and non-partisan attitude on the part of the working of bureaucracy. Non-partisan attitude on the part of the working of bureaucracy. Clear? Another feature is merit system. अब आइए, recruitment can be done either on the basis of political consideration or on the basis of merit. अब बताइए, in which case we can ensure objectivity on the part of the working of the public official. Merit. Civil servants are supposed to serve public interest or political interest? Public interest. And once civil servant, they are concerned about the pursuance of the public interest, then only they can achieve the objective of integrity. Now think of this situation. Weber says recruitment should be done on the basis of merit. If recruitment is based on political consideration, the first and the foremost aspect is that such bureaucracy cannot be concerned about the pursuance of the public interest, they shall be concerned about the pursuance of the political interest. And plus, without merit system of recruitment and the promotion, it is not possible to achieve objectivity on the part of the working of bureaucracy. So remember, whatever perspectives have been given by thinker, go through the perspective and then try to look for the importance of morality. Weber has not said I am talking about objectivity. Weber has not said I am talking about impartiality. But with his perspective, we can go for in-depth interpretation of all these moral values. That कर लीजिए. Merit system of recruitment. Merit system of recruitment ensures objectivity and facilitates the achievement of or the pursuance of the public interest. Public interest rather than political interest. Public interest rather than the political interest. And thereby it helps to promote integrity in the working of the civil servants. Integrity in the working of the civil servants. So remember one piece of advice, that in the case of thinker, if you simply go with the perspective of the thinker, it is quite easy to understand who said what. What is more important? Perspective to be interpreted. So in the case of thinker, always give more importance to interpretation rather simply going through the perspective of the thinkers. If you simply go through the perspective of the thinker, you may be more knowledgeable, but this will not have more importance to attempt the questions which are put up in the examination. इसलिए interpretation is more important than simply going through thinkers. This point clear? And plus, it will not be wrong to say, if you have got the proper understanding of other topics and subtopics, so even without going through the thinker, you can attempt questions on thinkers. But without proper understanding of other subject areas, any amount of input to understand thinker will not be that much helpful in the examination. If I am able to do some justice with the thinker, not because I am master of thinkers, but definitely as on date, I have bit better understanding about the subject area, therefore I am able to correlate. If you also develop, you can correlate in a better manner than me. So that is the most important approach to do thinkers. Clear? चलिए. Another feature is money salary. यहाँ देखिए. On one side, I am taking the case of the government. On other side, we are taking the case of employees, government official. Now, employees make a contribution to achieve the objective of the government. And for the contributions which are made by the employees to the government, what does government do to the employees? Salary, or you can say government makes compensation to the employees. And this compensation comes in the terms of pay and service conditions. Now the point to be understood, कि for the sake of the motivation of the employees, what should be the real situation? That compensation given to the employees by the government should be equal to contribution, or the compensation given by the government to the employees should be more than contribution. Less than is quite futile actually. So two situations are there, equal to or greater than. How many of say equal? Raise your hand. Equal. If compensation is equal to compensation, will this act as a source of incentive or motivation to the employees? But they will say, whatever I am contributing, I am getting compensated. So where comes the question of incentive or motivation? And if there is no incentive, there is no motivation, so there is no satisfaction. If there is no satisfaction, there is no efficiency, there is no effectiveness. Because if you are paying equal to, then what is incentive for the employees? Can employees have any obligation to the organization or the government? You are being paid more, but remember, I am concerned about motivation, incentive. That is your claim, right? Incentive is possible only when the compensation is more than contribution. If we are going for equal to, so it means employees do not have any obligation with the government or the organization. And I am concerned about what? Incentive, motivation, satisfaction. Yeah, think of the situation, forget about. Can I speak now something? I am addressed to you. When do you feel satisfied? Forget about perception. When you are getting compensated equal to contribution, or when compensation is more than contribution. Let's go for human tendency or nature. Never satisfied. So never satisfied, it means more satisfaction in the case of equal to or in the case of greater than. Greater than, accept it actually. So therefore, compensation should be more than contribution for the sake of motivation and the incentive. Another aspect is, in which case satisfaction is more when there is variation in the salary or when there is consistency in the salary. Because variation can be both positive as well as negative also. Here I am concerned about negative aspect. So in which case satisfaction is more in the terms of consistency, in the terms of variation. Consistency. Consistency is more possible when the compensation is done in the terms of cash or in the terms of kind. In the terms of cash. So Weber gives importance to money salary so that there can be more consistency. And once there is more consistency, but natural, it will help to promote more efficiency and effectiveness. That can लीजिए. Yes, please. Remember, Promotion is not concerned about salary. The essence of promotion is not economic incentive. What is essence of promotion? Change of duties and responsibilities from lower grade to higher grade. With the promotion, there may be increment in the salary, there may not be increment in the salary. हमेशा ध्यान रखिए, increment is economic, promotion is non-economic. Because essence of promotion is not concerned about enhancement in salary. It is basically concerned about change of duties and responsibilities from lower grade to higher grade. That is there. But economic incentive itself is not sufficient till such time it gets supplemented with non-economic incentive. What is promotion? Economic incentive or non-economic incentive? Non-economic incentive. But remember, Weber, when he talks about money salary, he is not saying money in the terms of economic and non-economic. He is talking about payment in the terms of cash or kind. क्योंकि Weber perspective was developed under capitalist mode of economy. Under capitalist mode of economy, importance is given to money economy. And therefore, Weber gave importance to money salary, but we are trying to derive from our perspective its interpretation in the terms of morality. इसलिए Weber perception was not rooted in the ethical imperatives. He gave perception as per the context of capitalist system of economy. But what we are trying to understand, that Weber's perspective can also be applied to understand the ethical imperatives of the working of the government. This point clear? चलिए. What they? They are paid equal in the terms of other employees. But with itself to work, just say, you take the case of X and Y, they are given equal payment. I am concerned about X contributing, X being compensated. Here equality is with respect to same work. Just when we say equal pay for equal work, does it mean that payment is equal? No. Equal pay for equal work implies that if there is a difference, difference should not be on the basis of the salary, but difference on the basis of the nature of duties and responsibilities. If works are different, the payment is bound to be different. इसलिए equal pay for equal work does not imply that for every work the payment should be equal. Even under equal pay for equal work, we do have differentiation. But that differentiation is justified not on the basis of pay, but on the basis of difference in the terms of duties and responsibilities. Getting the point? चलिए, okay, welcome. चलिए, तो next slide कर लीजिए. Money salary brings about more consistency and uniformity. More consistency and uniformity in the payment, and thereby more satisfaction or motivation, to the public officials. Motivation or satisfaction to the public officials, and thereby helps to promote effectiveness and efficiency. And remember, both effectiveness and efficiency both have got moral tinge, right or wrong. Both efficiency and the effectiveness, they have got moral tinge, moral orientation. What is efficiency? To do something in the right manner. And what is effectiveness? To do something right. right thing must be done in the right manner. It's only possible when civil servant or the public official, they work on the basis of efficiency and effectiveness. और जरा सोचिए, if a civil servant is able to work in the right manner with respect to right thing, so there cannot be anything more than this to become ethical. Clear? Another feature is sphere of competence. यहाँ देखिए, sphere of competence is कि every public official must work in accordance with the assigned authority and plus within its own territorial jurisdiction. Sphere of competence. If I say you, a sphere of competence is a means to prevent the misuse or abuse of discretions which are given to the public officials, right or wrong. They are limited by authority, they are limited by territorial jurisdiction. So sphere of competence becomes a means for the civil servant to go for the prevention of misuse or the abuse of discretions or powers. That कर लीजिए, sphere of competence helps to prevent the misuse or abuse of the discretions to be exercised by the public official. Clear? What is another feature? Impersonality. क्या देखिए, impersonality says a bureaucrat should not be affected by his own value system, and therefore a bureaucrat should not be guided with his own personal preferences. Now think of this situation. Without impersonality, is it possible for the civil servant to work for the public interest? The answer is no. Plus, already we have discussed in the class, the values of the public services are not the preference of the public official, they are the public expectations out of the working of the public officials. So that also becomes evident in the case of perspective of Max Weber when he talks about impersonality. That कर लीजिए, impersonality ensures that a public official or civil servant, impersonality ensures that a civil servant or public official works in accordance with the wishes or the preferences, in accordance with the wishes or the preferences of the public rather than being guided with his personal value system. Guided with his own personal value system. And if you remember, even this was said by Kautilya. King is the servant of the state. King should be guided with the values of the public, not with his own wishes or preferences. And this is also being emphasized by Max Weber in the terms of impersonality. Another feature, neutrality. Another feature is neutrality. Now remember, public official or the civil servant, they should be impartial in their behavior. And what is impartiality? Impartiality means equal treatment to all, without any kind of biasness, without any kind of prejudice. And what is biasness? Because impulse requires, yes please. Biasness is working someone's favor is not biasness. Favoring someone is not biasness. favoring someone at the cost of another, that is biasness. Point is clear? So giving preference to someone is not biasness till such time that preference given to someone at the cost of the interest of some others. And what is prejudice? Prejudgment? Yes, please. Preconceived notion. And when do you have the preconceived notion? When we make judgment without taking all factors into consideration. Clear? Now, in the case of impartiality, there is no biasness, there is no prejudice, then only we can achieve the objective of equal treatment to all. But if we refer to the notion of impartiality, impartiality with respect to whom? Impartiality with respect to public and impartiality with respect to political parties. Now the point to be understood, why impartiality is required even with respect to the political parties? Because different political parties can come into power. Different political parties can form the government. Now think of the situation, if civil servants are not politically impartial, so can they provide justiciable administrative services to all the different political parties which come into power? The answer is no. And therefore, civil servant or the public officials should be politically impartial. Now the question comes, how they can become politically impartial? When they have involvement in the political activities or when they have non-involvement in the political activities. Non-involvement, I remember, the non-involvement of the civil servants in the political activities, that is referred to as non-partisan. Now, Weber talks about neutrality. What is neutrality? It is basically aggregate of two dimensions. One is political impartiality and another is non-partisan. And therefore, when Weber gives importance to neutrality, this can achieve the objectives of political impartiality. This can also achieve the objective of non-partisan. Clear? तो note कर लीजिए. The concept of neutrality. The concept of neutrality helps to ensure. The concept of neutrality helps to ensure political impartiality. Neutrality helps to ensure political impartiality and non-partisan attitude in the working of non-partisan attitude in the working of the civil servants. In the working of the civil servants. And therefore, civil servants are not expected to be. And therefore, civil servants are not expected to be committed to. Expected to be committed to the ideology of the political party. Ideology of the political party in power. Ideology of the political party in power. Clear? Any other feature that left out? Which one? Already we have discussed about that written documents can bring about fixation of duties and responsibility. That कर लीजिए on the basis of the written communication. On the basis of the written communication, there can be better accountability. And what is accountability? One of the features of the value system of the civil servant. On the basis of written documents, there can be better accountability of the public officials. Better accountability of the public officials, which itself is accountability of the public officials, which itself is one of the important components which itself is one of the important components of what? Ethical governance. One of the important components of ethical governance. Clear? And plus my minimal expectation is that once we conclude formally, to at least go through the topics which are given in this syllabus. तो एक बार syllabus के topic को देख लीजिएगा, चीजें और भी clear होगा कि how we are supposed to interpret actually जो. जैसे deliberately I have said, once we have written documents, it will promote accountability. Syllabus mentions about accountability and ethical governance. So interpretation of the thinker for better understanding, at least go through the topics and subtopics to make it more clear and explicit. Okay? And therefore, if I say you that Weber's approach, although gives importance to legal authority, but this does contain the importance of ethical imperatives, right or wrong. तो conclude कर लीजिए. Weber's model या Weber's bureaucratic model, Weber's bureaucratic model gives importance to Weber's bureaucratic model gives importance to ethical imperatives. Ethical imperatives in the bureaucratic behavior. Ethical imperatives in the bureaucratic behavior. This model corresponds to the perspective of which Indian thinker, which we already discussed? Kautilya. Very good. Corresponds to the perspective provided by Kautilya. Is similar to the perspective provided by Kautilya. But if I say you, whose perspective is more pragmatic and practical to apply? Kautilya. Very good. But Kautilya perspective, or Kautilya's perspective, is more pragmatic and practical. Conclude कर लीजिएगा. So similar to Kautilya, but the perspective provided by Kautilya is more pragmatic and practical. More pragmatic and practical. And plus, in the case of features of Max Weber, you can also add one aspect. Features में वो भी add कर, that's important actually. एक feature add कर लीजिए, separation of. In the case of features, that's very important. Separation of public resources. Add one feature more in the case of Weber. Separation of public resources and private resources. Separation of public resources and the private resources. I remember, once we have the separation of the public resources and the private resources, then only the civil servants go for the optimal utilization of the public fund. And this requires financial prudence, financial propriety. And how this is possible? When public resources are segregated from private resources. So that feature of Weber also corresponds to ethical values. Clear? So these are some important aspects of Max Weber. Okay. And plus whatever we have discussed, that is important, but what is more important, to learn the approach to deal with the thinkers actually. If you are able to learn the approach, our purpose is fulfilled, because ultimately syllabus is never completed, it is declared to be completed जो है, ठीक है. चलिए, यह होता है complete क्या? क्योंकि हम तो आज तक नहीं कर पाए कभी भी जो. I have not been able to complete syllabus. Therefore, I always say, formally it is completed, informally it is open to you. Okay? And plus, whatever discussion we have done, once we refer to other areas, automatically we get deeper insight to understand thinkers and perspective. So it is just a beginning, it is not an end. Chaliye, any queries from your side? Ruchi is saying कि please discuss previous questions if possible, at least one. So Ruchi, you can put up the question before me. Accordingly, I shall discuss actually. I leave the choice upon you. You have said at least one, so you can put up one question from your side, which you expect me to discuss right now. Should I wait, Jaji से? ठीक है. चलिए then best of luck. ठीक है. Okay. Okay, welcome sir.